The co-working market has had a big impact in London because it's actually changed the way not only co-working environments work, but also the way that corporate businesses approach their workspace as well.
Businesses are definitely demanding more flexibility, and occupants want a creative environment that's high quality and there's lots of amenities. It's almost the perfect storm for the co-working industry, and it's no real surprise that they've gathered such momentum and popularity over the last few years.
Co-working is working alone together. It's a place where people go and do their own work, or by themselves or with their own groups. There's been a drive from micro businesses and small individuals to find a place to work. And co-working has become the natural environment for small businesses and individuals to do their own work, but also exchange ideas and cross-pollinate.
The co-working revolution has been partly created by the need for people to have flexibility in how they work, whether it's been working for 2 or 3 days at home, whether they just want a flexible a desk available for 2 or 3 hours a day. But that kind of culture is spreading across all businesses now. So actually the co-working model is being mimicked in a lot of fit-outs for large corporate occupiers.
Clearly with the co-working space, you're looking for a collaborative, open working space where people can engage and can network together. I think the traditional model of the 8 till 6 standard office working hours has started to diminish somewhat now, and the whole co-working experience is one of they can work whenever they want, however they want, with that sort of flexibility and adaptability. So I think from that perspective, it's definitely challenging the norms, it's challenging the accustomed way of doing things. People are conscious about how they're using the spaces they're in, why they're using it. So I think for me, it's definitely going to start to ruffle a few feathers, make people think differently.
We're seeing a lot of more densely packed office areas, but also the requirement for lots of breakout spaces, flexible working areas, and those spaces actually need to change during the life cycle of the office. You might have a breakout space that's used for coffee in the morning. In the afternoon it might have to cater for 100 people in a town hall meeting space. So the impact of that means that M&E has to be more responsive, more adaptable, more flexible.
Well, one of the key factors that characterizes co-working is the element of community, collaboration, openness and flexibility. And that's really has become part of how traditional offices are taking on board elements of that.
They've created environments which I think a lot of spec buildings are now trying to also recreate. So that sort of coffee shop vibe in receptions, making sure there's different amenity spaces within buildings.
But now, because we have to create garden spaces and terraces, gymnasiums, all the spaces we would normally have used for M&E now are used for other purposes. That helps attract new tenants and helps sell a building. So from an M&E engineer's perspective, we have to completely rethink how we approach M&E design. The spaces that we wouldn't normally put plant in, we will use now.
It's interesting how the market has responded to the co-working. Certainly they've had a great pace of taking up stock in the market, but it has been, in order to fulfill that growth, they've not been building to suit the co-working model. They've been having to take traditional buildings and then stamp a co-working brand on the confines of that building. And whilst as a spec developer, there was always a mantra that you create something that's reasonably flexible, but maybe a little bit vanilla and in some ways, and the tenant comes in and does their fit out and creates the space they want out of that. These days, I think you very much have to sort of focus on your target market. You want to be attractive to the widest possible range of tenants, but also you want to make sure that you are hitting the right buttons in terms of look and feel for that environment.
You will continue to see the requirement for flexibility and adaptability in building users, but also how the space is used for people to use day in, day out. So not just when they're using it, but it's how they're using that space.
Floor by floor plan is a great idea, because that also And not only does it free up roof and basement space for amenity use, it means that the systems can be responsive on a floor-by-floor basis. That suits different tenants, and also means that leasing structures, which have also changed. Typically leases at the moment might be 5 or 10 years rather than 15 to 20. And that means as tenants vacate a building, then you can actually address the refurbishments in a more staggered, manageable way, rather than having to deal with main systems, which has traditionally been a problem for landlords.
When you're talking about developing offices, co-working or traditional, and you are going down the road of that smarter technology that's being installed in that building for whatever purpose it is, accessing that data, making it available, using that data for engagement with people using that space, be it either occupiers, landlord, or people visiting that building, that space, that is where the future sits for me in terms of really driving the value, really driving the engagement piece, and taking that data set, understanding it, analysing it, and then making some actionable decisions based on that is what the future will hold.
Building design is moving away from fixed office environments. The introduction of co-working spaces into buildings as an offering to tenants means that they can expand and contract their businesses without needing to move, and that becomes attractive then for landlords, because it means that they can keep tenants in their building and encourage them to stay. They don't need to move out as they grow. So flexible working has to stay within building design. M&E systems have to allow those environments to work successfully.